Hello and welcome to this companion video to the main one on writing a paper in APA format. In this video, I'm walking you through the template I made in LaTeX on Overleaf to help make writing an APA format paper easier, specifically a lab research report, but it's adaptable to other formats as well. If you're looking for more broad advice on how to tackle writing these sorts of assignments, check out the linked main video. Links somewhere, hopefully. Alright, so first, to address the LaTeX elephant in the room, what even is LaTeX, other than something that's very difficult to search for if you don't have the useful keywords to use? LaTeX is a document preparation system, which is different from things like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, which are word processors. The big difference on the user experience end of things is that with Google Docs or Word, you're directly making the document. What you see is what you get. Whereas with LaTeX, you're doing a sort of markdown coding to tell LaTeX what you want the document to be. And that sounds way scarier than it is, so let me show you. We're going to compare the process of putting some text in my templates between Google Docs and LaTeX. As a note, I've deleted out basically all of the text, so these are the blank versions, just to make finding the text easier. We are going to make 4 changes: the title, running head, add a subheader to the intro, and add and use a reference. I'm going to guess of these two that people are most familiar with Google Docs, so we'll start there. So we need to change the title to be the long title version. Then we also have to change it down here. Oop, not all. Is that what I called it? So we got the title, the running head, add a subheader to the intro. So add a subheader, but because it's Google Docs, it's not doing what it's supposed to. And add and use a reference. This is easier if it wasn't all smushed. Okay, so we're adding a reference. Let's just do a book. Oh, it's an old book. Okay, so we have the author. Add, there we go. Then we have to edit that. Doop. 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 So those are those changes in Google Doc. Okay, now let's do the same thing in LaTeX, which we're doing an online editor with Overleaf, which is very nice. So we are changing the title of the paper. We're changing the subtitle. Short title. While I'm finding stuff, I'll mention, so we edit the stuff on the left, and then on the right we get the PDF, what it looks like. So while I'm looking for stuff, compile that, because we have to recompile it when we make changes. And it is unhappy because we don't have anything in the bibliography yet. Okay. We need to add a subheader to the intro. And then we add a citation. So grab bibliography. I think I did it as a book. So then to cite it, and then we'll make this bigger. So we've got the paper title everywhere it needs to be. We have a subheader, and we have the reference all ready to go. Hopefully that illustrated a couple things. First, that rolling out changes is a lot easier in LaTeX once it's set up correctly. Second, and hopefully, that LaTeX isn't as scary once you get past the initial shock of it being so different to what you're used to. And if you're still here and watching, thank you. I appreciate and respect your bravery in trying new things. So let's go through the LaTeX template I have set up, and just as a note, there is a more blank version and a verbose version. And the verbose version is the one with all the directions and everything, and the blank one is just more sparse, so you don't have to delete as much. So we're going to go through the verbose version so you can see all of the comments and everything that's there. As previously mentioned, with the Overleaf editor, and actually most LaTeX editors, the writing happens on the left side and the output preview is on the right, so PDF over here of what it's going to look like. And it's possible to hide that, so if it's disappearing on you, chances are it just got hidden there. Also, you can resize it. Because this is a sort of programming situation, you can comment out parts of the document by using the % symbol. And what that means, if you're not hip to the programming lingo, is that that'll just be ignored by the compiler. So LaTeX doesn't care it's there. It won't look at it. It's not going to do anything with it. This is just where you can leave notes for yourself, or where I can leave notes for you. It's also really handy for editing, because if you're trying to work a line and you get feedback that they don't like the line, you can just comment out the old line and put a new line in. I'm rambling. There is a lot of commentary from me on this to hopefully help you ease into using LaTeX, because there is a learning curve, but like I said, this is what I could have used when I was learning stuff, just really everything explained, because I had no idea what I was doing. And just a heads up, if you do want to use a % in text, you just have to do the escape character, which is a backslash, and then the %. And that will get you the % in text. This is also true for ampersands, because they have a specific thing that they do. So if you need an ampersand in text, you just do the escape character and then the ampersand. Okay, so we have the text editor, we have the preview, and then over here we have the files for this. So we are working on the short sample tech, which is an artifact of the thing I copied this from. You could call it whatever, really. And in addition to that, you have the other files that you need to run this document. So the files we need, well, we need the tech file, we have a picture, and we also have the bibliography. So things that are .bib are the bibliography file. Again, you could call this whatever, as long as you're consistent in what you're calling it. So there's a couple different entries here. So that's an article, it's a book, that's an in-book, so like a chapter in a book, and there's loads more. If you have something that isn't one of these formats, like a dissertation or something, just Google up dissertation, LaTeX, BibTeX, or bibliography format, and you'll be able to find how to format all of that stuff. To add more, you can just copy and then go down, paste, and then change it as you need. So this first line here is the key. So key 2024. So the way I usually do these, the naming standard that I use is the first author's last name and then the year, just to make it so it's easier to remember, because you will need to sort of know what your key is to be able to reference it. The upside of this is when you start using papers over and over again, you're going to know the author names. Like I could tell you some attention papers and implicit learning papers and other things, some of the authors and years, just because I used them so much in my dissertation. So just to reiterate, LaTeX uses this to know what information it needs to pull, and there's cat shenanigans happening. When you want to add a figure, you just upload and then grab it from your computer and it'll put it in the file structure where it needs to be. We'll get to how to actually include it in text when we get down into the results. For completeness, I will mention that it's possible to have more than one tech file in any given project. Like, I use LaTeX to write most anything I can. My scripts are in LaTeX, my dissertation was in LaTeX, my lectures were LaTeX, like, everything I can do in LaTeX, I will. And if I can't, I will still try to. It's that much of a preference for me. So for anything that isn't just a trivial little bloop-a-doop thing to do, I will have my main text file with all of the formatting and settings and macros set up. Oh my gosh, macros. Mwah. And then in that main text file, call the separate text files that have the content in it. So like my dissertation, each chapter was its own text file because that was just way too much crap to put in one big long file. For my scripts, the way I do it is I have the content of the script itself, and then I have different text files depending on if it's the proof version or if it's the version I'm going to print. Because the proof version has like comments with my script reviewer, Dr. Mr. the Husband, or just notes to myself for things I want to think about or need to discuss with him, and just stuff like that that gets omitted from the final print version. Having the content in separate text files is also handy if you're shuffling around the order. So instead of trying to copy and paste huge chunks of text, you just change the order that they're called in the main file and boop, new order. It's very nice. Okay, let's get started with this text file. There's basically two parts to a text file: the preamble and the document text. The preamble holds all of the settings for the document. The very first not commented outline lets LaTeX know what sort of document it's going to be making. And this has to be the first executable line it sees. If it's not, it's not gonna run. It's gonna error. Let's show you. And then we made a change. Now we recompile. And it should break. Didn't break as hard as I thought it was going to. Interesting. Yeah, so when we have an error, you get an error message over here in the log and output file, and generally it'll try to point you to where the error is so you can fix it, but troubleshooting isn't always this straightforward. Instead of clicking the recompile button, you can also use the Control-Enter shortcut, and now it's happy. So this is using an APA 7 document class. There is basically a document class for almost anything you can think of. Like there's recipes, letters, different journals will have their own document class that you can use. Some schools will have a LaTeX file for like theses that you can use, and it's really great when they do. Mine didn't, and it was pain. But yeah, so this is the document class, and then these are options for the document class, and I explain all those in here. Okay, so we go down a bit and we see the packages that we are using in this document. So the packages add extra functionality that's not part of the document class. So all of these expand the functionality so we can do other things like have the bibliography, have specific quote thingies happening. This is where we are adding the bib resource. So we're pointing it to where the bibliography is. Language mapping American, so you don't have squiggles on the U's for, or you would have squiggles on the U's for stuff. Yeah, just extra stuff that wasn't in the APA 7. As we keep going, we hit the part where we get the document information. This includes the long version of the paper title, the short version of the paper title, author, due date, affiliation, course info, and professor. And for whatever reason, this is also where we put the abstract in, like up here, before we actually even start the document instead of down in the document somewhere. Not entirely sure why it's like that, but it is what it is. Okay, so the second part of the document is the main body text, which begins with this begin document. And when there is a beginning, there has to be an ending. So we go down to the end, you can see there is an end document. If we don't have that, it's going to be unhappy and it's going to break. But if you, generally it has pretty good smarts going on. So if we begin a document, it automatically adds the other half that it needs, and then you just work in this middle space here. And then we delete that, boom, we get our document back. But yeah, so the end document ends. Stuff after it isn't going to be acknowledged by LaTeX. The beginning and ending is also true for the squiggly brackets. Squiggly, right window, squiggly brackets. So if you have an asymmetric situation, it's going to be unhappy because it doesn't know what it's doing. It needs things contained and enclosed, and yeah. Okay, so the things that have like begin and end are environments. So like this is the document environment. Smaller things will just have, you know, whatever it is, and then it's stuff happening in between its squiggle brackets. So the bigger things won't be encased in squiggle brackets like the smaller things will. Right out the gate in an APA format paper, we have a title page. And so the document begins with the make title command. This tells LaTeX to make the title page with all of the info that we gave it up here. And as we scroll down, you can see that something similar is happening with the abstract. We aren't having to tell it to make the abstract, it's just making it because that's what this document class does. Scrolling down, we hit the introduction, which is automatically using the long title version of your paper title. So if you need to change your title for some reason, you just change it there, recompile, and boom, it's on the introduction, and it's also changed on the title page, and you only had to change it in one place. Brilliant! The thing I will highlight here is how LaTeX handles references. Once you get used to the commands, it's pretty easy. So in this, we are using the bibliography package to handle the references, and that's going to dictate what citation commands you use. So there's also packages like natbib, which has different commands, and it's actually what I use for my scripts, so these commands were a reminder of other options. So if you want, and let's go down to the intro where these are, get it bigger. So if you want your reference to show up in parentheses entirely, you use the paren cite command, which is like that. So paren cite and also paren cite. So the author and then the year is in the parentheses. And you see that you can like modify it so it has the EG. And you do that just by adding the square brackets to do it. And it's a double set because it's trying to fill in before and after. So if you only have one set of square brackets there, it is going to stick the EG afterwards, like that, which isn't great. So we just like, hey, there's nothing back there, stick it up front, please, and it'll do it. If you want it to show up in text, so the author name in text and then have the year in parentheses, you use the text cite command like that, and you end up with that. And you'll note for all of these that we are using that key that we set up at the top of these. We're using the keys to call them in text. But a nice thing when you have it is you can select from the list. And for a project this size, it's pretty cool that you can just pull it in like that. But if you have like 100 references, you need to learn your keys. The text cite and the paren cite are pretty much the simplest of these that you can use. If you Google bibliography, you get all of the command options that you could possibly want for citing things in text. We go down to the methods section, and actually I'll mention that there's a file outline here. So you just have to click on the different paper parts and it'll take you to it. But anyways, in the methods section, we have its various subsections, which are called by the subsection command. Indicating these are just easy. Section, subsection, and you get everything formatted how it needs to be. No muss, no fuss. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is how to do a table. And this looks like a lot, but there's a wizard for it. So which one of you buttons? Table. So let's just add a 3x3 table, and it does a lot of the work for you. So the only thing that we have to do is add a caption, and in APA format, the caption goes before. So this is another table. Blah, blah, blah. It is centering it in text for us already. Tabular is just the little table environment that we're using. These are the alignments. So let me fill this out really quick. Okay, so recompile, go down to where this would actually be. Okay. So we have another table, we have the caption, but you will note that it doesn't have lines. And that is because I forgot to put in the hline command. That is going to tell LaTeX we want a line there. And let's have a line there. When you're typing and it suggests a thing, and that's the one that you want, you just hit enter and it'll put it in for you. Oh, and it's sticking a caption down there too. That's silly. Some things to mention. Some commands will work without having the squiggle brackets surrounding the thing. Centering is one of them in certain conditions. But you can also just do the good old trusty begin and end center, and that'll work too. Okay, looking through my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so again, we have the begin, we have the end, we have the begin, we have the end, and let's show you what this looks like. So we can have it left aligned, and let's have that one right aligned. So it's just a matter of which side you want to line up on. Generally, APA, we want things to be centered, but not always, so you have some flexibility there. If you want to add lines between them, you can do it as just a little pipe character, which is on the backslash. You can also add a space, and you'll see the difference with that, in theory. So sometimes it'll be tight, sometimes it won't. Today it's, I guess, not being tight. You can also have double lines. Let's make this one thicker just for fun. There, yeah, so you can do all sorts of fun stuff. So inside each row, this is basically like each row of the table. So we have the line up top, and then we have the text of the first line. So this is a 3x3. So we have the first cell, the second cell, and the third cell, and these are separated by the ampersand. So that's why if you need an ampersand in text, you have to use the escape character. And then over here at the end, we have the double backslash, and that's how the table knows that row's done. Okay, and then the last thing we have for the table is its label. And so that lets us refer to it in text. So, hello, this was my new table. It was table, and then you do a little squiggle to make sure it ends up like, doesn't break the line between them. And then ref command, we're cross-referencing tab my label. And recompile that. I am looking in the wrong place. So boom, this was table 2, and it's automatically numbering things for us. There we go. Oh, and it's doing a thing where it tries to best guess where the table should go in text. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see if I can get it quickly. No. I'm trying to think what to say, how to spin this. Yeah, this is the thing with LaTeX, is because you are giving trust in where things are going over to the document preparation thing, it's gonna try to do the best it can with what it's got and following certain rules and guidelines. So it's gonna be on the next page because it didn't want to have it here, I guess. So you can do different options to try to get it to play nice. And if you're really fighting with it, send me an email and I'll try to help you. Because it's, yeah, this is one of those things. I'll mention that you can call this whatever you want. It's just generally good to have some sort of system, like you call tables whatever, and then this is table of greetings. Then we just need to change this thing to table of greetings. So that way it knows still what we're talking about here. And then I see I've got an italic here. So you basically just have to tell LaTeX which text is getting whatted. So you can double click and you can use the little button guys up here, or you can just use the normal shortcuts for bold being Control B and italic being Control I. Control U is not a thing. If you want something underlined, you actually have to tell it to underline it. Control U just does this, which, cool, not what I want. Okay, so if we keep going down, we hit our figure. Figures are sort of like the table, where you have the environment that it gets stuck in, it's centering. Instead of making the table, we are including the graphics. And so the include graphics command, the name of the picture, and then in the square brackets, we are modifying the command to change the size of it. So if I get rid of this and rerun this, it'll just be the width of the page or of the stuff in the page. And again, it's trying to do the fun page setting. Oh, it's even bigger than the width of the page. Okay. So we're going the 3/4 of the line width, but we can go all sorts of sizes. Like if we want it smaller, make it smaller. You can make it bigger, all sorts of things. You can also, instead of this, you can give it exact sizes. So not delete the whole thing, but 4 inches, 4 centimeters, 4M, which is like the size of an M, so this is going to be really tiny. Yeah, so that is the sort of width of 4 M's. But let's get it back to biggish. And so just going through chronologically, you know, we tell it's centered in text, we insert the picture, and then we give it the caption and then label it. I guess I should mention what this is. So the $signs means it's in math mode. And so it'll italic the text and it just looks a little different, a little cleaner. A lot of people will use LaTeX because it makes writing math easier. Like trying to get a differential equation or something in Word is a process into itself, but LaTeX, it's much more straightforward. Another thing to talk about are the custom commands. So you can set up your own little macros to do stuff. So in this case, I'm doing what I did for a lot of my dissertation and have different macros set up for the different statistical tests. And so the upside here is you only have to get like all of the formatting correct once, and then you just stick numbers in it as you go. To set up a new command, you tell it it's going to be a new command. And then in the first squiggle brackets, what you're going to call that command, and then how many inputs it's going to take in the square brackets. And then the last squiggle brackets are for what the command itself is. And so in this case, we're just sticking in an italic F, the first number that we put in, the second number we put in, the degrees of freedom, and then the F test value. And then this is insignificant, so p-value above 0.05. So then to use it, it's just I'm using ANOVA in SIG. It gives us the brackets. So 141.41. And then should see that above the discussion. Ta-da! And it's already in all the italics and everything. But you'll see that's like breaking the line there. So what we can do is add the little squiggles, and so it should keep that all on one line, for better or worse. All right, we keep going down, and the last thing we have before the end document here is the print bibliography command. And that is just telling LaTeX, stick the bibliography in here, and it'll compile everything that you referenced in the paper and make the reference page for you in alphabetical order by last name of the first author. Because APA format. And also because APA format, it is on its own little new page, even though there's a ton of white space there. That's just how we roll. So that is the LaTeX starter document. One last thing I'll show you here is some of the nerdy fun stuff that using LaTeX buys you. So back up top here in the square brackets, we have the different options for it. So we are using the student version right now, which gives you all of that stuff. But let's say we want to try a different one and see how this looks as like a journal output. Just change that setting, wait for it to compile, and boom. It's like it's printed in a journal. Putting this back into student, but oh no, your professor decided they want it in 11-point font. What are you gonna do? Sit there with Word and try to make sure that everything's 11-point font and not breaking the format in some weird way? Or just changing it up top, and now everything is in 11-point font. Oh, they want it back to 12? Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. You just have to wait for it to compile. Boom. Done. I will end this video with a caveat though, because it's not all sunshine and rainbow and tie-dye hoodies over in LaTeX land. It can break on you. And it can break on you in weird ways that are hard to trace down. When I say break, it's not like your document's going to eat itself and poof out of existence. It's not going to compile. And you're going to have to trace down the error to figure out why. The template should be relatively bulletproof for what you're probably going to use it for, at least right off the bat. If you need to start fiddling around with the section header formats or other formatting things, I can't guarantee that the seas will continue to be as smooth to sail. A lot of times a huge document stopping break can happen because you have an extra squiggle bracket somewhere or are missing one. Just always make sure that your little squiggle brackets have their pairs and are happy. Another one that got me on the script for a bit was capitalizing a letter in a command that shouldn't have been. It couldn't tell me that was the problem, but eventually I figured out that was where the problem was happening. Yes, I got a little eager with the shift key, and so it didn't recognize the command. So it's a lot of times something simple, but you just have to figure out where it is. So in Overleaf, the errors will be on the PDF side of the browser window. If it's really bad, it'll replace the PDF, but a lot of times it'll just be like a little red or yellow. Yellow means like, oh no, something's kind of wrong. Red means this bad. And it'll give you an error, like a line number where the error is, or at least where it thinks the error is. It can be before that, below that, somewhere around there. So yeah, it tries to help you. If you're hit with this, the thing to do is to try searching for whatever that error code is it's giving you and seeing what people say on it. So there's like a Stack Exchange for LaTeX and other like Reddit. Lots of places have information here where you find that error code and see what other people have done. That's how I figured out the squiggle bracket, because it was like some weird error I'd never seen before, but then, oh, somebody saying like, oh, it probably means there's something not closed, and yeah, sure enough. So yeah, heaven help you if you end up on Stack Exchange, but there are other people, and it's rare that you will be the only one experiencing a problem. So you aren't alone, and there is help out there. And yeah, that was my quick little intro to LaTeX by way of an APA research lab report paper template thing. Bye.